Thank you very much for joining and a warm welcome to our 19th webinar today with the topic reuse at events. It's the right event at the right time. We have summertime. There are a lot of events outside in the cities, in the sport parks. We just had the European Championship on football. So there's a great variety of events outside and a lot of potential to implement reusable packaging on those events. And that's our webinar today. Please unmute yourself while our speaker is talking. You can always put your questions and your comments in the chat. At the end of the presentation today, we will have a Q&A session as always, and we will pick up your questions. You're very much invited to write down your questions during our speaker is talking. We scheduled the webinar until 12 o'clock. So we have 1 hour for that dedicated topic. And first I want to introduce you very quickly to Planet Reuse. It's the first European online platform and network bringing together professionals to connect, learn and collaborate on the topic of reusable packaging and reuse. The platform went live in September 2022, so it's close to our second birthday. And we have more than 1,200 registered members from more than 600 organizations on the platform, mostly based in Europe, but also outside Europe. Yes, my name is Nicole Seyring. I'm happy to moderate this session today. And here with me today is Audrey Reinsdorfer, who does the tech host, and also I can see Marcel from Planet Reuse. Marcel, can you wave? Warm welcome also, Marcel. The topic of first, before we go into the question, we have a little warm-up question for you. This is, because that's fitting to the topic, what was the last event you were attending, last big or small, outside or indoor event, concert, sports, whatever? And did you find reusable cups, tableware, or other items, other reusable boxes? So please give us a short answer in the chat. Name of the event, maybe the city or the municipality, and did you find reusable packaging there? So while you're answering, I am introduce you to the topic and to the speaker today. In Flanders, that's a region of Belgium, reusable cups are mandatory at all events, and before they were gradually introduced. Mandatory there are since January 2020. 2 years later, the government also applies similar rules for catering, so also for food boxes and so on. And we will learn today about the experience of this obligation. And our expert today will give us a great insight on events with different sizes and settings, including large and small urban events, with one organizer or a whole variety of organizers, including different parties like the HORECA sector, organizers and local authorities working together on this issue, but also on closed doors events like concerts or music festivals with only one supplier. And as a third case, sports events with multiple points of suppliers, for example, hikers or runners. So we will hear about the great variety of different events and the experience made over the years on these events, applying reusable cups and other packaging. And we will learn about these insights from our guest speaker, Lore Klaas. And Lore is policy officer and for sustainable events and reuse at the Public Waste Agency of Flanders, the OWAM, and the Administration of Waste and Materials for the Minister of Environment in Flanders. Together with a colleague, Lore is advising organizers and local authorities to help them implement the legislation on reusable catering materials at events in Flanders. And Lore will take about the legislation, the event settings, the involved parties and cooperation partners, the logistic, the return rates at different events, and the experience OWAM made also in supporting those kind of events. And you will also hear about ongoing debates between event organizers and public authorities, the do's and don'ts, and the policies to come in the sector in Flanders. And finally, Lore will present a short evaluation of this legislation, of the input of the legislation for reusable packaging being mandatory at public events. So yes, I give the floor to Lore. It's very nice to have you here. Lore just came back from holiday, so maybe can you answer, have you been on a big event in holiday? I've heard you've been in Berlin, so maybe there was some event you've been visiting. Yes, you first have to unmute yourself. Looking for the button, I can see that. Otherwise,
okay,
unsharing.
I think you can hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thanks for the help,
The
Nicole.
floor is yours.
Yes, I was in Berlin and it was summer there, so it was really, really nice. But no events in Berlin. We did lots of other stuff, which was also really nice.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Nicole, actually, first of all, thank you, Planet Reuse, for the invitation and for the possibility to giving us the floor, Flanders, to present a bit what we have been doing for the past few years. I think Nicole already presented me really well. I'm working for the Flemish government. Maybe for people who don't know Belgium really well, so we have actually 4 governments. We have like a federal Belgian government for the whole country, and then we have 3 regional governments. One of them is Flanders, in the northern part of the country. So this is actually the area that I'm working in. So in this presentation, I will try to explain, I think you can see my presentation well now, yes. I will go through the legislation in Flanders, and Planet Reuse asked me to give some examples and some cases. I made a division into 4 types of events. This is, of course, like nothing, it's something that a division that I made up myself to make it a bit easier to talk on the different systems that we see now in the field. And then to conclude, I will give a brief evaluation of the systems in Flanders and the market in Flanders. So I think I have 30 minutes something to go through it with you, and then there is room for questions. So first of all, the legislation. In this slide, I made a quick overview about the legislation in Europe and then how we have translated it in Belgium. So in Europe, we have the Single-Use Plastics Directive and the upcoming Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation. I will not go into detail, I guess you all know it. And then we have translated this into like Belgian policies. So we have on the federal level a royal decree that just has been published only in the beginning of July. And for this topic, what is important, there is now, since the 15th of July, a market ban on disposable plastic cups. So they cannot be like sold on the market anymore. Only stocks can, I think, at the moment. And so in the future, no disposable plastic cups will be available anymore on the Belgian market. And then from here in 6 months' time, so from the beginning of January, also non-compostable plates and cutlery are banned from the Belgian market. And then we have the Single-Use Plastics Directive also translated in the 3 Belgian regions. I will not talk about Wallonia and Brussels today, but I will talk about Flanders. Before we deep dive into the legislation, I'll quickly explain like how to interpret it. So there is actually the legislation is divided into 2. So we make a difference between events that are organized by a government and events that are not organized by a government. So the legislation for governmental events is more strict because of the exemplary role of governments and their important role to launch the markets there. So what is the legislation? So first, this first slide is the legislation that applies to all event organizers today in Flanders. So since 1 year for all events in Flanders, disposable cups are not allowed anymore. If it is cardboard disposable cups or plastic cups, it doesn't matter. All kinds of disposable cups are not allowed anymore. And actually all other disposable recipients, except for PET bottles and cans. So if today you go to a Flemish event, the only disposables for drinks that you can still see are PET bottles and cans, on the condition that they are collected minimum 95% for recycling. And what we have also implemented for reusables, if reusables are used on events, the organizer also has to implement a system to return the recipients. It is to avoid that the reusables would become like gadgets and that we would like create again like disposable systems, but then with reusable recipients. So in the legislation is included also an article that obliges organizers to set up this system with a minimum of 90% collection that has to be able to be reused. Then next slide is the current situation for all governmental events. So there since 2020, so more than 4 years already, all kinds of disposable drinking recipients are forbidden. Only reusable ones are still allowed. It's also possible that it is glass or porcelain. And again, this system with a minimum of 90% collection for reuse. This will also apply to all Flemish events from the 1st of January 2025. So to this year, they can still use these cans and PET bottles, but from 1st of January 2025, no recipients for disposables will be available anymore at events in Flanders. Then, as I said in the beginning, for local authorities and all kinds of governmental events, the legislation is more severe. So also there, for prepared foods, disposable tableware is not allowed anymore, including cutlery. So there, all the material has to be reusable. And again, this collection system is obligatory. Some side notes. So it is only about what the end user receives in its hands. So behind the bar, for example, big PET bottles can be poured out, can still be used. It's also like a zone that is more controllable and it's easier there to collect everything really well for recycling. And we, of course, encourage all the organizers there to use as much as possible bulk packaging, barrels, and big packaging. But bottom line is it's only applying to what the end user has in its hands. And it's also regardless of the mode of serving. Is it's like sponsors that are handing out drinks, it also has to be in reusables. Is it to crew or artists, that it doesn't matter. Also, the area doesn't matter if it is like the artist or crew area, the audience area, the camping, it's everywhere. Okay, that's all for the legislation for now. If any questions, you can like ask them at the end of the webinar. Now I'll deep dive with you in like 4 cases. Not 4 cases, actually 4 types of events, and then also a case at the end. So the first one is a large open urban event. So what do I understand with a large open event? It's like a big event in, most of the time, a city. There is no one exit or no one entrance. Anyone can just entrance by any kind of possibility, and also exit by any kind of exit. So it means that it's not really well controllable, the event and the audience flow. That makes it really complex. Also because with these events, often many stakeholders are involved, like a local authority, local organizers, for example, with the Gentse, if somebody would know the events in Flanders a bit, the Gentse is one of the biggest large open urban events that we have. It's over the whole city, like all the squares are involved, and each square has a local organizer or an association. So it's pretty big, and sometimes they're also like incorporated in one kind of organization. Sometimes also a catering company is involved. Often these events, they are taking place together with other events in the city, such as a fair or a carnival. And then, of course, there's more stakeholders involved. And sometimes you also have like individual drink or food stall holders who are also there. The coordination of the reusable system, what I have written down here are all possibilities, also like the stakeholders. It can be all of them, it can be some of them. It's just to give you an overview of like general data that you have to have in mind with these kind of types of events. So what we see in Flanders, like the coordination of the reusable system, like we always recommend that it is centrally organized, and that is so it is the same for each participant. With these events, we see that or the local authority coordinates everything. For example, in Kortrijk, we have Kortrijk Singse. It's a bit like the Gentse. And there in Kortrijk, the local authority organizes the whole system, and everybody who is participating to the event has to apply to the same system. In Ghent, for example, we see it's a cooperation of local organizers of each of the squares that organize the system with support of the local authority. Soon in September, we will have the European Championships of Cycling, and they end in Hasselt. And there in the city, there will be actually a catering company who will install several bars in the city. They will work together with the organizer and also with the local bars. So it can be one of these, but it can also be a combination of these for the coordination of the system. For the division of the costs, again, different possibilities. A division between the local authority and all of the participating stakeholders. For example, the local authority takes into account the logistics, and then the washing costs are divided by all of the stakeholders who sell drinks and food in proportion to what they sell. Sometimes also a beverage sponsor is involved who also is participating for a part. For example, they take into account the rental of the cups. And sometimes it's so a combination of all of these who participate in the costs. The deposit system that we see with these type of events, I only see there like two options, an open loop or a closed loop deposit system. No deposit is not an option for these big events. We had an example only end of last year in Bruges for a big urban event. And they didn't apply any deposits. There was a lot of loss of cups, although they did many efforts to collect them on the field, on the terrain in the city. But despite all of their efforts, many cups got lost. So for these big open events, no deposit is not an option. So open loop is a possibility. It means that people can just pay by their own money devices, so just cash in euros or with their own bank card or payment app. The refund is then also just with euros or a refund to the bank account of the person through this kind of paying devices. Or what we also see is QR codes. Like there are companies offering this possibility. So it's actually a system where the organizer can print a QR code and the visitor has to scan the QR code, give its bank account, and then the refund will be paid back on the bank account of the visitor in a few days' time. These QR codes, many organizers now in Belgium make use of them because in that way they don't have to have a lot of cash money. It's to avoid to have cash money on the event itself, and it seems to work really good. For example, in Kortrijk, Singse, the one of the events I just told you about, they are also using it. Then the second option is closed loop. So it means it's some kind of paying device that is only applicable on the event itself. For example, cash, you first have to go somewhere to like buy coins. And then with these coins, you can pay your drinks or go and buy somewhere a drink card. Or if it's digitally, go and buy somewhere a payment card, and this payment card can only be used at the event. For the refund, after the event with the payment card, you can ask for a refund, but often you have to, there's like an administration cost involved, and the visitor has to pay like €1 to €3.5. So not the whole amount is refundable. The QR code is also a possibility, and what we also see, what organizers do is that they like give a gadget or give a voucher for some kind of activity on the event to avoid again to have cash. We don't recommend a reward because a gadget, it's again like waste, let's say. An activity can be like a good option, but many people just want their money back. So we always recommend to give the possibility to give the money back. And then it's like at every point of sale, which we also recommend that because it's just easy for the customer that everywhere where he goes, he can give back his cup. It's also really beneficial for the final return percentage. And if possible, in combination with separate return points. Sometimes organizers only choose for return points. It's possible, but we see that actually the return rates are much higher and also clients and visitors are much more happy if also at every point of sale you can hand in your cup again. Then the washing, there's two possibilities. So, or a cup is used several times during the same event. It means that the organizer has like dishwashing at the event available. So professional dishwashers and or also mobile dishwashing streets, which is, for example, the case at the Gentse Feesten. Or it's a one cup that is only used one time, and then it goes to an industrial washing facility. This is what we also often see when there is, for example, not the when there's not enough staff or the facilities to also have intermediate washing on the spot. Final washing should always be in an industrial facility because reusable cups, they don't dry so well, and these industrial facilities, they dry the cups, and the intermediate washing facilities cannot do it. So that's a very important thing. Then to conclude, if the system is well applied, we see return rates of more than 90%, even more than 95%. And we have waste numbers of minus 40% of residual waste and minus 60% of sweeping waste on the event. I give here some examples. We have many more in Flanders since it is now obligatory. So I apologize to all of the events who aren't there in my examples list. But it's just to give you an idea. Also, if you would like to search further for events, these are some you could check. Then I go with you to a case. So I chose for Aalst Carnaval. It's the biggest carnival that we have in Flanders. It attracts some 200,000 visitors each year. And this year, for the first time, they swapped to reusable cups. Actually, all of the bars that were open in the city, they all participated. They had to participate. It was actually the city who was coordinating the system. So it were more than 30 bars participating to the cup system. The city has numbers of the waste, like the sweeping waste and the residual waste in the all over the streets in the city. And this year they had minus 22% waste per visitor, which is kind of impressive numbers for a first time of reusable cups. How did the system work? So actually each cup was €1 of deposit. So with your first drink at the bar, you would pay €1 extra. And then you could hand in your cup like in all of the bars or in one of the 3 return points, this container that you see spread out in the city. So in most of the bars, they would just pay you €1 in cash. But in the containers, you would get this QR code, and also 4 bars were also giving these QR codes. Because like some bars also had difficulties with cash during the event. So yeah, we see often that cash is a problem for a refund. And here's some photos of the event and of all of the bars. And then there was also a team that was going through the city because, okay, we have the reusable cups, but with open events, people can still take all of their drinks from home or go to the night shop or to the supermarket to pay cheaper drinks in the city. So there was a team that was collecting PET bottles and cans. They were also disguised, and it was the first project, the first time, and was very well received. Many carnivalists were helping them, maybe because of their disguise. So the city was much cleaner. It was only a small team, but even already with a small team, they could make a difference, because all of the plastic and cans that they collected could go to recycling. Okay, next to the second type of event, so the small urban open events, it's kind of like the same as with the big big urban open events. The only difference is that it's of course for less participants. Again, like it's not official numbers that I give you here. Like I just made this up, like a small open urban event until like 50,000 a day. Was for me easier to make this division. So most of the general information is the same as with the big open events. The biggest difference is that often for the small open urban events, there is no beverage sponsor, or the events are not big enough for a beverage sponsor. And it's like too small for a cooperation of local organizers. There's just like one local organizer, because it can also be very small urban events, like for 1,000 or 2,000 people. So then often you only have like one organizer. So I will not go into it in detail. Just I will only point out the differences. Then again, for the deposit system, we see the open loop and closed loop. It's a third option is glass and porcelain. For the smaller events, we see that this is applicable as well. And then there's no deposit needed because we see that people don't take glass or porcelain with them. The return rates and waste numbers are similar, and then some examples that we have here in Flanders, but again, we have many more. And then I have some examples for you. So the first one is with porcelain and glass. It's an event in Hasselt in Limburg for 5,000 people every year, one day in the summer. It's like a culinary event. I don't know if it's correct English, but so it's a food festival actually. And so the organizer, there's so one local organizer, which is supported by the city, and the organizer rented all the catering material at the local thrift shop. I don't know if it's the correct translation, but in Flanders we have like many second-hand stores who are also funded with public money. And sometimes they have extra activities such as rental of glass and porcelain, and sometimes even rental of reusable cups and washing facilities. Because they were also washing on the spot, they only rented 1/3 of the needed material. And so there was no deposit needed. So this was like the intermediate washing, and behind, you don't see it on the photo, there was also a professional machine. So it's very intense. You have to have a lot of volunteers that can help with this kind of system if you wash on the spot. And then they had like several collections points, and with this little wagon, they were going around to collect like all the dirty dishes. They made it themselves with recuperation of materials from like a local fruit grower. Okay, that was it. So that's the system with porcelain. And then a second example on a small annual market in Contig. It's like a small market for about 1,000 persons every year, and it's like all local associations who sell their stuff and also food and beverages. It's like just one street for a day. Here the local authority coordinated the system. They rented bowls, plates and cups with one professional supplier. And in the same kind of thrift shop, they rented metal cutlery. I'm sorry. And the deposit was €2 per piece, except for the cutlery that was not included in the deposit system. Because it was metal, we thought that people would not take it home. So here are some photos. These are also the instructions to the vendors. This is also really important to communicate really well with the vendors, also to do it well in advance, to tell them that this is a system that will be applied, what will be the deposit, also to ask them like how much material that they need and how they have to handle it behind the bar. Then some photos of the communication on the ground. So this is also the communication that you see here is part of like an OVAM campaign. Like this is material that we offer to organizers on our website, and then they can like pimp it themselves. So here is a system explained. And so these posters were also included. And some photos of the tableware that was used. And then we go to a closed door event. I didn't make any division in a small closed door event or a big closed door event. There are, of course, many differences between them, and actually every event is very different. But for this webinar, I kept it to just a closed door event. So there, again, it can be like organized or by a local authority or by a local organizer, but it can be, again, like a cooperation of local organizers and associations. For example, Rock Werchter, one of the biggest music festivals that we have in Flanders, like you have Rockwerchter, the organization who is like organizing the closed door event, and then around it are associations in the street who also sell drinks and food. But for example, Sphinx Festival, there you have like one organizer who is coordinating everything, and then you have all kinds of associations who are selling food and beverages. The stakeholders can also be a catering company, and you can also have individual drink and food stall holders, or a combination of everything. The coordination of the system can also, again, be a combination of several possibilities. The local authority, the local organizer, the catering company, or each vendor of beverages and food. It's something that we do not recommend. We always recommend that the system should be coordinated like centrally, and that everyone can step into the same system. It's the most clear for the visitors, and also for vendors it's better, so there's no confusion amongst the visitors. The division of costs can be very different. If the local authority organizes it completely, then of course most of the time they take also all the costs on them, or the event organizer, or the catering company, or a combination, sometimes also with a beverage sponsor, depending on how big the event is. For deposit systems, we see like four possible systems: the open and the closed loop that we have discussed earlier, the no deposit for porcelain and glass for the smaller events, and a third option is the eco token. It's actually a system with no monetary value. It means like people enter at the festival and then they get like 1 or 2 tokens for free that serve as a deposit for the first drink. It seems to work pretty well. We just had like a big festival, Graspop Metal Meeting, in middle of June, where it was applied, and also several other festivals applied. And it was received really well. The only difficult thing with Eco Token is that because of the non-monetary value, the last cup is sometimes difficult to get back. So there have to be many efforts, for example, more volunteers at the exits, and good communication to return the last cup. The washing is the same as at the other types of events. And then, the return rates are again very beneficial if these systems are well applied. And again, some examples. I'll go a bit faster because I see I'm running out of time. So I have an example here of Sphinx Mundial Festival. It's like Sphinx organizes organizes 2 festivals a year. One smaller in May and one bigger of 4 days in July. This one is the smaller one in May for 30,000 people. They ask like €0.50 for per item. They have tableware and cups. And this year, in comparison to 2018, when they first swapped, when they still had disposables, they see like a minus 56% of waste per visitor. They had really good return numbers this year, and they have a lot less work with sweeping the field and a lot less waste. Here are also some numbers of the Sphinx Mix Festival in July. It's our numbers that go until 2022. I'll not go into detail, but it's reflecting a bit like the same trend that we have seen for Sphinx Mundial. And then here are some photos of the system. So it's just working with like bank contact, what we have here in Belgium. So you just pay with your card. There's like no special card of the festival. It's very easy to pay. You pay at each bar, and for the first cup, you pay €0.50 extra. If you go for a next drink, you can hand in your cup. And at the bar, and then if you don't want to have your cup anymore and you want your money back, there's like one central return point at the festival. And there they were also washing some of the cups, because some cups were a bit rare and they didn't have a lot of cups of them. So these ones they were washing on the field intermediately, but all the other cups were only used once and then were going to the industrial washing facility. So some more photos of the system backstage and how they were like separating all the used cups. Also, there was a possibility of donating your cup on the field to the festival. And then to end, I'll talk a bit about sports events. Actually only about the supply at running or walking events. I'll not go too much into detail here. The most important, I think, in Belgium, you already have different events who work with reusables. I think the biggest one is the Dodentocht. It's a hiking event in Flanders for the moment, with more than 13,000 hikers. And in Brussels, the 20 kilometers of Brussels with 45,000 runners. And this year was the second year that they were working with reusables. And as an example, I have the Dodentocht. It's a hiking event. So last year, it was the first year that they swapped for 100% to reusable cups. They have more than 13 supply stations. And they had a very good return rate, like almost 97%. For this year, they will choose for 1 cup for all drinks. Last year, they had 2 cups, but they saw it was a bit confusing for the participants. They also want to have extra water taps, and from 2025 on, they don't want to have any bottled water anymore, but they want to like serve all the water from tap water, and encourage the hikers even more to bring their own recipients. So here are some photos of last year's Dodentocht. They worked with big bags and with clear signs. And they have a lot of tap water on the each of the supply posts as well. And then it's time for evaluation. So I'll also go really quickly there, but you can read all of it after this presentation, because the PowerPoint will be sent as well. Like end of 2023, we did like a small wrap up of like what we see on the markets. So we were asking around through a survey in Flanders with the suppliers, all the professional suppliers of washing and cup reusable cups that we have in Flanders. And there we could see that actually each year the amount of reusable cups for rental is increasing a lot. For 2024 and 2025, it's like a prognosis on what the suppliers were thinking they would have to make extra. So we see that the legislation is actually ensuring an investment security. We see that the supply follows the demand. Also, we see the same tendency for reusable cutlery and tableware, but there the legislation only applies to governments, so it's going a lot slower than with the cups, which is obligatory for like now all the events. We have seen also that the dishwashing facilities are increasing a lot. We have now 13 locations that are washing for Flanders. And these are only the industrial ones. We do not count all the professional dishwashers and the mobile washing machines that we also have. And we saw like also a lot of startups that are offering digital solutions for return systems, like this QR code that I was explaining earlier. So here is a map of like all the washing facilities and the suppliers of reusable cups in Flanders. So Flanders is like this upper part of the map, and the lower part, that's Wallonia. I know I go a bit too quick, but I think I have to stop because Nicole wants to give the floor to you. And these are then like many local authorities in Flanders. They also offer cups for like smaller events so that they can rent it at more beneficial rates. We see now that 75% of the Flemish local authorities offer it. Even more numbers of like local authorities who are all offering it through like a separate agreement or a framework agreement. And we see the same tendencies for reusable tableware and cutlery. And then to end, I had one slide with like all the support that we give by the Flemish government. It's a bit concise, we do much more, but I think this is the most important. So we carried out like research that this was actually also the basis to have the legislation voted. I added some press releases with some numbers that we only just released now. We only just released a podcast also on reusables at events. We had this like evaluation that is also available on our website. And since 2 years, we have an annual conference on reusables at events in March, where we invite like all the suppliers and also all the organizers and local authorities. This year we had almost 500 people coming, so it's very successful, and there we try to exchange like all kinds of best cases. And then we have like the communication kits and a lot of support on our website. Okay, that was a lot of information, and I will give the floor now back to Nicole.
Thank you so much, Lo. That was a very nice and comprehensive insight of what experience you did in the last years with reusable packaging and cups at events. Very nice with all the pictures, and I think we all got a very good insight on how it really works in practice. We have quite some questions in the chat, but before I go to the questions, I want to let you know about our warming up question and the answer on this. So you were all not sitting in your houses and flats. You were a lot outside in the last days, and we had a lot of answers. For example, about concert in Cologne, where there has been reusable cups, and the Save the Core Festival in Nuremberg, Sarah has been there. Also reusable beverage cups. Then Wayne has been on the Foo Fighters concert in London, very cool. And they brought their own reusable cups, and also on an orienting run challenge in Czechia, Ivo has been participating, also bring their own cups. Then we had Marcel at the Vier Daagse Festen. I guess it took 4 days. And there were reusable plastic wine glasses, but for a deposit of €7.15. And there has been Anders with a EM football big screen showing event in Aarhus, but there has been no reusable cups at this event. Which is a bit, astonishing maybe, because Aarhus is one of the communities also doing some things in reusables. Then there has been another football match in Krakow, and there were reusable cups for drinks in the deposit system. Further festivals in Antwerpen, in the Czech Republic, sports events in Berlin, where they all have been reusable cups, and in Berlin also plates for all food. That was Julia from the Zero Waste Agentur. And then we had a summer concert in Slovenia with reusable cups. And now we go outside Europe. There was the Milwaukee Festival, the Pride Fest in the USA. And they set up refill stations, but visitors were not allowed to bring their own cups because of security reasons. But then there has been these refill stations at the event, and some vendors also sell reusable bottles. We also had further festivals in New Zealand, in Australia. Annika has been on a soccer match, also with reusable packaging, also for food, and so on. So yes, a lot of good examples where reusable cups and also food packaging is occurring, but also some in between where this is not the case yet. And let's go through the questions in the chat. First, I want to announce Audrey is sending you a link in the chat right now for a little survey of this webinar. So it would be great if you could, in parallel or afterwards, give us some feedback about these webinars and other webinars we have from Planet Reuse. And also we collect topic ideas. If you have a topic you want to discuss, please let us know. But now we start with the question. Lore, Paolo Azzurro, one of our great member and hub coordinator in Italy, he asked if there is also, if the ban from the municipalities or in the law also includes compostable plastic cups or not.
Yes, yes. So it's any disposables and compostables are included. Yes.
Yeah, so no matter what material it is, except of, you said, PET bottles and cans, but also this will be forbidden from January 2025, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yes. Lisa asked, what is the best practice to secure the 95 return rate? I mean, you were talking about different systems, QR codes, deposit refund. I don't know if you also had systems where there is no deposit at all involved at sports events, for example, where they just collect somewhere at the road. So what would you recommend is the best option?
When there is like more than 95% of collection, it means most of the time that the organizer had like refund possibilities and return possibilities at every point of sale, often also supported with extra separate return points, that the communication was very clear and very visible, but because what we see sometimes they're really good systems, but the organizer doesn't communicate enough about it, and so the visitor doesn't know that he's paying €1 extra, or he doesn't know where he can hand in the cup again. So I think this is two very important things that make systems successful, and also that it's organized like centrally, so that there's only one system. It's the same for each cup or tableware, and that it's everywhere €1 and you can hand it in everywhere. I think these are three very important conditions. And then for the running events, indeed, it's like the supply stations on the running. You don't have, you cannot ask any deposit, but often, yeah, people have to throw it into like bins, and then, yeah, I think for the very big ones, we are still searching for the most efficient system, because these are many runners who pass by at the supply station at the same time. I think I'm really looking forward to like the Marathon pour tous, which will be held on the 10th of August in Paris. 50,000 people will participate, and Paris will organize it all with reusables. They have been studying for a very long time and testing for a very long time at smaller events. So they're really working on the best possible system for running events. And I think for smaller events, like, it's easier. There are not so many people at the same time at the supply station, so then the bins work really well. Or even then it really works well that people just bring their own bottles or camel bags or own foldable cups.
Okay, thank you. And what about the system in parallel? Do you have events where they have deposit in cash and also QR codes, or do you have also events where it's the one or the other? And do you recommend the one or the other for a certain type of events? Is there any experience on that?
Yeah, often it's a combination, and I think that it's good that it's a combination. I think the most easy one is an open loop system, so that people can just pay with their own devices and with their own cash or cashless money. We see with the closed loop that it's a bit more difficult because people have to like first go somewhere to like pay this kind of card. Often you have to already add a minimum amount on it, so it's less consumer friendly, I would say. So I would suggest make it as easy as possible for the visitor and for yourself. So open loop I would always recommend.
Okay, then there was a question about washing facilities. I think you answered it at least partly already with the last map you showed. Is there a washing facility central to the region where the dishes from the events are being brought and washed? And a follow-up question maybe from me, what do you recommend in terms of washing? Is it better, more efficient, also cost efficient, but also environmentally friendly, if you think about the transport, to do it locally, to do it externally? What's the experience there?
Yeah. We see since the legislation that there's like industrial washing facilities now in every province in Flanders. So transport distances are getting really small. And following our research, if distances are less than 150 kilometers, and often it's even much less, it's not such a big impact on the environmental impact. But of course, the smaller the distance, the better, that's for sure. And then to answer to your question, it really depends on also the amount of volunteers that you have and the setting of the festival. Is it on a field far away from any water, or is it in the middle of the city where you have all the infrastructure available? Then yes, you can wash on the can do intermediate washing. The advantage there is that you have to hire less cups, so you have to hire less cups, and then so that's less money. And also the final washing is also less cups, so again less money at the end, but of course more crew in between and more water use in between. So it really depends if you have the infrastructure available or not, because it's also something extra you have to organize. But if you have it, then for sure it's a very good option.
And a question connected to that one, for the washing, who is paying? Is it included in some service fee? Is it full service, or is it still subsidized somehow from the city, for example?
I know. So in Flanders, we don't have any subsidy. So we had a subsidy, and I think from 2019 until 2022 for local authorities. If they were buying cups, we would fund it for 50%, but now we don't have any subsidies anymore. We only have like some kind of contribution for tableware, but it's very small actually. So the most of the time actually an organizer have to pay a fixed amount per cup or per piece for washing, and it's going from 6 to 15 cents per cup, depending on the amount again and on the deal that you can make with the washing streets.
And again, a question about the costs from Katharina Papp from Tallinn. If the deposit is not fully refundable, how is the amount of admin costs regulated? For example, you can't ask more than €3 deposit for an item. But if the fee is higher, how do you subsidize the costs at the end? How do you?
Well, it will never be more than, I think if you have a deposit of €3, you will gain a lot of the festival. So actually, we recommend 1 to maximum €2 for a cup. And actually the cost of a cup is around like 40 to 60 cents per cup. So it also means that each cup that is lost, you earn, of course, the deposit because it's anyway paid. But that's also why we have this obligation of minimum 90% return, because otherwise everybody would like make some kind of extra income out of the cups, which is not our intention. But so how do organizers then try to fund the system? It's with the donation, the collection points. to like ask the visitors to like help funding the system. Partly also with the cups that are lost, and some also now included a bit like in the income tickets, how actually I think all the costs of festivals are paid. Yeah, these are the options, and also for smaller events. So we have the local authorities also having framework agreements or own cups, and they can be rented at a very beneficial rate. So that also helps like smaller organizers.
Okay. And I see a hand from Katharina. Hold on a second, Katharina. We have 12 o'clock, but I think we give another extra couple of minutes. So who can stay, please stay. Who cannot stay, you can always leave the room and have a nice summer break already. And we see you back in autumn. But I think I also have some more questions on the list. So let's have another extra 5 minutes, if okay, for the people who wants to stay. Katharina.
Yeah, hello. Actually, my question was, is the deposit fully refundable, or is it so that you pay, for example, €3 deposit and then you get back only €2, for example, and one is like a environmental fee or service fee or whatever fee that you don't get back? How is it there?
We would always recommend to pay back the full deposit, but the system that you described, we also see that, for example, the organizer asks €1.50 and only refunds €1 to fund the system. I think if the difference is not too big between the deposits and the amount that you pay back, so that the participant still has the feeling, okay, I get my deposits and it's only like a small amount that I leave here for the festival, that this is also a good way to help funding your reusable system. I think there's so many creative ways to fund the system, and indeed I didn't mention it, but that's also a possibility.
So you haven't regulated anyhow the percent of the. Do you want to answer? No. Because we have in Estonia, I have seen some problems that people are very angry that they don't get full deposit back, and why companies are getting our money and
yeah.
And also a problem is if an event organizer or service provider, they actually gain more money. They see it as a profit way to get money from the people. It's not only covering the service fee, but they get extra, as it's not regulated by the government, let's say. So we see it as a big problem here.
Yeah, we have not regulated it neither, but I think if you speak with organizers, I would always recommend to make it as small as possible, like already 20 cents. It's a big extra income, I think, per cup for an organizer, so it should not be more, because indeed, I think visitors are right to complain.
Yeah, it's not regulated. So, for example, we had a big summer festival here. The deposit was €3, and you could only get 2 back. So they earned €1 from each dish, from each cup. And as it's not regulated, we can say, of course, you can put 50 cents or 20 cents. It's not regulated, so it's up to them. They can decide how they organize this event. And if you, as a customer, want to consume, then of course you pay the money, but it's not fair at all compared to the other event organizers who, for example, you get fully refund from the deposit, or you only get like small, you don't get, let's say, 50 cents back, but the €1 is a lot earned from each dish. So that's a problem we see here in Estonia, and maybe it's also a problem in other cities or countries, as it's not regulated yet so detailed. And if you are in the situation where you're planning to regulate it, so I think it should be regulated somehow, that a washing fee or service fee cannot be more, let's say, than 50 cents or 30% or whatever.
Yeah.
So
maybe there's somebody in the room has experience with that case, that the deposit is very high and the fee in the deposit is very high. And then please just contact Katharina. Maybe you can put your email address in the chat. It would be great to have an answer or experience exchange. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a problem. Two more questions. One is from Nada, from again and again. What stops someone getting their refund via QR code, but not actually returning the cup, then taking it to the bar for another refund? Is there any safety system that prevents that kind of fraud?
Yeah, you really have to hand in the cup before you get the QR code printed. It's really printed on a ticket at the moment. So you hand it in a certain return point, and there is someone who prints.
I think
the
it's
QR
the case
code.
when you have a box, for example, I don't know, and you scan the code
No,
and then you
it's
drop the
not
box.
you always need someone at the return point. Yeah.
Okay, so that's always involving staff who takes back the actual cup and scans the code. Okay. And another question from Paolo. If I understood correctly, even in the case of long-term events, such as a month-long event during the summer, the model of selling the cup to the user and then exchanging it for a clean one or a token for a new drink is not allowed. Selling a cup. You mean the full price, selling the cup for the full price, and then I don't know exactly how you mean it, Paolo, but then bring it back to the event. Exchange. Yeah, you said, okay, now I got it. You buy the cup and then you can exchange it with a new cup.
Yeah.
But you pay the full price first, and then you have this exchange system. Okay, I got it.
Sometimes events tend to use this model, the bring your own container, but the container is sold by the company. So I sell the drink, but I sell first time the cup. But every time you come back to buy another drink, you can bring back your cup. And without an extra price, but you don't get back your the price you paid because the cup is yours. This is a common used model in events because we are providing in the Emilia-Romagna regions funding to test reuse models at events. And I'm deciding if I have to allow this kind of model or not.
I wouldn't recommend for it.
When the event is long, maybe that lasts over the summer, 3 months. I said to you that the cup is yours, but every time you bring with you your cup or your token, you have your cup, you are served in your reusable cup, and you can do this for all the events.
But do you have any information about return rates and about reuse rates? I mean, how that would be interesting to know, to compare the rent system and the sell system, and then to compare the return rates.
Yeah, not exactly for this kind of system, but that's actually, to answer your question, Paulo, that's why we in Flanders implemented this minimum 90% return rule, and they have to be able to show it. So if they decide to sell the cup and they still are able to have minimum 90% back, it's good, it's still okay, because we cannot decide about which system a festival has to implement, then we would make it much too complicated for making a legislation.
Okay,
so
the main rule is the return rate. You have to reach
at the end of the festival, 90% of the cups have to be back in the festival to return to use at the next festival. Otherwise, for the environment, it's not beneficial, and I think also
I know the problem.
And for hygiene reasons, I don't think it's good that people take their cup home and bring it back later.
No, you can take the token. You can have a token where you leave the event. But if the event lasts enough time, you can bring back to the event the day after with your token and use your token to have a clean cup to have the drink served.
yeah, again, maybe there's somebody in the room who has some more experience with this kind of system. Please reach out to Polo to exchange experiences. One last question again from Katharina. If there is a restaurant staying in the area of the public event, do they also have to comply with the reusable dishes and cups during that event or not?
Yeah, if they show that they're actively participating in the event, for example, because they make their terrace bigger or they add an extra bar in front of their restaurant, then yes. But if they just do what they do every day, their normal operation, then not.
And okay, another one last question, but that's really the last one. It just dropped in. Who regulates and checks the 90% return rate? How do they have to prove it?
Yeah, they can prove it with like just the invoices of the washing facility and or of the cup supplier. And in Flanders, it can be checked from by like Flemish control. I forgot the word, but on the Flemish level, we have people who control it, but of course they cannot check every event. So also every local authority can control it, or by the police, or by certain people who have like the mandate for it to control it.
But you can control if they implemented the system, but probably police cannot control the 90% return rate. I mean, you need some other.
Yeah, so we have actually a lot of, we also have given like webinars to like these local controllers to help them. And we always recommend that they go on the spot and then they also ask for the numbers afterwards, because numbers only don't say anything. And of course, people can make fraud with it. If you go to the event, you quickly actually already see if the system will work or not, if it's clearly displayed, if there are a lot of cups on the ground or not. So we always recommend to go there and to just pick some events that you think will maybe not apply to it really well.
Okay, thank you very, very much. We are a bit over time and I want to take up more of your time. Thank you, Laura, for your patience, for the very nice presentation. Thanks to the audience, in particular to those who stayed at the end. To us, if you have any questions, please contact Laura directly or also us via the Planet Reuse platform. Let us know your further questions. We try to answer them. Thank you so much. I wish you all a nice summer, more festivals, sports event, everything outside. Go and test the reusable cups and packaging, and we see back in autumn, yes, for the next webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.